9:30 this morning. Just want to thank everyone for being on this morning, especially Ms. Raganow, and just a few housekeeping chores before we begin. I apologize in advance for how many times I'm going to screw up within the time period of our meeting, but if anyone wants to speak, of course, we can only see 4 panes at one time. Please type in the message and we'll try to make sure that you get recognized. Everyone's input, as always, is extremely valuable. Like to also thank Ms. Jennifer Fraker for agreeing to take the roll call votes, which are required this morning. And I believe for approval purposes, we need to state your name, and because of the lag time, that'll give an opportunity when each of us state our name and how we vote, that'll be much easier for Ms. Fraker to kind of tally and to keep up with. Certainly want to emphasize the remarks. If those of you were away or didn't hear Mr. Raleigh's comments complimenting Interim Commissioner Brown regarding the communication level, we all thank you, Commissioner, and regardless whatever they're paying you, it's not enough, and we all realize and know that, and we appreciate you during this time, and you've set the bar a whole lot higher for whoever follows you. Just want you to know that. At this time, we'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. Ask everyone to please mute their mics at this time and begin with regulations for a second reading amendment to 701 KAR 8:020 evaluation of charter school authorizers. And again, this is a second reading. So Dr. Kelly Foster.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Good morning.
Yes.
I also have with me today, virtually somewhere, my policy advisor, Whitney Crow. As Superintendent Green mentioned, this is the second reading of this regulation to waive the charter school authorizer training for the local school boards. And we have made a couple additional changes just to kind of clean up the regulation since it was first presented to you. And so at this time, I will turn it over to Whitney so she can highlight those changes for you all.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me as well?
Yes.
Great. So the first change that we want to bring to your attention is on page 14 of the regulation. We have deleted some requirements that the Department of Education produce an application scoring rubric. This goes beyond really what the department is required to do in statute. And I would just say deleting it doesn't mean we can't or we won't produce that kind of guidance in the future. It's really just necessary at this point to untie our hands a little bit and remove some of those more burdensome requirements and restrictions that the KBE placed on itself through the promulgation of this regulation and that language specifically. The other major change that we've made, or more substantive change, I don't know that it's major, but it's in section 11. We are deleting some extensive reporting requirements. There is already some charter activity reporting that is required in statute. This language in section 11 goes beyond what's required in statute. And again, given the limited charter activity that we've had since these statutes went into effect back in 2017, having this extensive of reporting on the activity seems unnecessary at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions or receive any feedback that you have about either of those changes or any other portion of the reg.
Do we have any comments or questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Fraker, could you call for a roll call vote at this time, please?
I certainly will. Danny Adkins.
Yes.
Oh, just a moment. This is Todd. Could we get a motion and a second and then roll call vote?
I'll make a motion. Danny Adkins.
David Raleigh, I'll second.
Okay, we'll start over. Danny Atkins.
Yes.
Tim Bobrowski. Are you still muted? Are you muted? Ah,
Yes.
okay. Yes, you're muted. Dr. Bobrowski, you're muted. Now
How
try.
about now?
There you go.
All right,
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you. Harry Burchett,
Yes.
David Cox,
Yes.
Jerry Green,
Yes.
Keith Hale,
Yes.
David Raleigh,
Yes.
Kelly Ransdale,
Yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Russ Tilford,
Yes.
and Sheila Mitchell.
Yes.
All right, Chair Green, that's all of your members.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fraker. Next up, 780 KAR 1:011, repeal of 780 KAR 1:010, Kentucky State Plan for Career and Technical Education. Again, this is a second reading. And we have with us David Horseman, Tom Thompson, and Leslie Slaughter. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is a simple change. Perkins 4 was incorporated by reference into this regulation. And now that we're in Perkins 5, there's no longer a need for this regulation. So that's why we're asking to repeal. Anybody have any questions?
If no questions or no further discussions, do we have a motion to approve 780 KAR 1:011, repeal of 780 KAR 1:010, please?
Harry
Kelly.
Birch. Go ahead, Kelly.
Kelly Ransdale, motion to approve.
Thanks, Kelly.
Harry Burchett, I second.
Thanks, Harry. Ms. Fraker, would you please take the roll call vote at this time?
Yes, sir. Danny Atkins,
Yes.
Tim Bobrowski,
Yes.
Harry Burchett,
Yes.
David Cox,
Yes.
Jerry Green,
Yes.
Keith Hale,
Yes.
David Raleigh,
Yes.
Kelly Ransdale,
Yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Russ Tilford,
Yes.
and Sheila Mitchell.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay, next up, and thank you, Ms. Fraker. Next up, 702 KAR 6:046, repeal of 702 KAR 6:045, personnel, school nutrition employees, qualifications. And again, this is also a second reading. Robin Kinney and Laura Moore, welcome.
Good morning. This is Robin Kinney. These are second readings, and we have not made changes from the first time we presented in front of LSAC. I'm going to let Lauren Moore briefly walk through each of the regulations that we have before you, this one that we have before us, and then the second one as well. So Lauren, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, we're not hearing Lauren.
Okay, this is Robin. I don't hear Lauren as well, so I'll just walk you through real briefly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Lauren. Can others hear Lauren?
Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. I'm just gonna briefly summarize the repeal of 702 KAR 6045. This regulation outlines training requirements for district food service personnel. This regulation, the state regulation actually preceded the federal requirements that were put in place in 2015. The state regulation we are proposing to repeal requires the same training topics for all staff at all levels, and also the same amount of hours in the initial year of hire, and also in the subsequent years, the annual training hours are the same. The federal requirements we have now and have had since 2015 actually have more training more annual training hour requirements for directors and the manager level. And also after that initial year of hire, those annual training hours stay at a higher level for those higher staff levels. It also gives some additional flexibility in the training topics so that you can tailor your training to those higher levels of staff. And so we have districts, I think the most important thing here to communicate is that districts have already been following those federal requirements. We were following both, and so we're just requesting to repeal the state requirements to only have one set of professional standards that our food service staff follow. And I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions or comments for Ms. Kinney or Ms. Moore? If not, do we have a motion to approve 702 KAR 6:046 repeal of 702 KAR 6:045 personnel school nutrition employee qualifications?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks.
David Raleigh, I'm sorry, David Raleigh.
Todd, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just one thing. I think that the titles got switched on the materials that came to you all. So the repeal, and Todd, you correct me, or Jennifer if I'm wrong, but the repeal should be 6045.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Raleigh. Do we have a second, please?
Danny Atkins. I'll second.
Thanks, Mr. Atkins. At this time, Ms. Fraker, would you please take a roll call vote?
Absolutely. And I'm hearing there's a little bit of a lag on the video. So just so that people know it's you making the vote, if you'll say your name first and then your vote, then we'll be sure that your video showing. So here we go. Danny Adkins.
Yes.
Tim Bobrowski.
Yes.
Harry Burchett.
This is Harry, and I vote yes.
Thank you. David Cox.
David Cox, yes.
Great. That really does help. Thank you. Jerry Green.
Jerry Green, voting yes.
Keith Hale.
Keith Hale, yes.
David Raleigh.
David Raleigh, yes.
Kelly Ransdale.
Kelly Ransdale, I vote yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff.
Kirk Biggerstaff, I vote yes.
Russ Tilford.
Russ Tilford, yes.
Sheila Mitchell.
Sheila Mitchell, voting yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Fraker. The last item we have is amendment to 702 KAR 6:040 personnel policies and procedures, a second reading also. Again, Ms. Robin Kinney and Ms. Laura Moore.
So this is a very simple amendment to basically strike the reg reference that you all just appealed. So it's just to make that one change.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to approve the amendment to 702 KAR 6:040, please?
Tim Bobrowski, motion.
Thank you. Tim, second, please.
Second, David Cox.
Thank you, Dave. Ms. Fraker, could you please take a roll call vote at this time?
Danny Adkins,
Danny Atkins. Yes.
Tim Bobrowski,
Yes.
Harry Burchett,
Harry Burchett, I vote yes.
David Cox,
David Cox, yes.
Jerry Green,
Jerry Green votes yes.
Keith Hale,
Keith Hale, yes.
David Raleigh,
David Raleigh, voting yes.
Kelly Ransdale,
Kelly Ransdale, I vote yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
Kirk Biggerstaff, I vote yes.
Russ Tilford,
Russ Tilford, yes.
Sheila Mitchell,
Sheila Mitchell, I vote yes.
Okay, Chair Green, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fraker. At this time, we will take our last motion, that's to adjourn. But before I ask for the last motion to adjourn, I'd like to give Commissioner Brown an opportunity after we adjourn, since we're still on the meeting, and I have no idea regarding this considered a special call meeting or what have you, but we'll have the motion to adjourn. But as always, I'd like to give him an opportunity after we adjourn, while we're all on here, if there's anything that he would like to share with us. So at this time, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn the Local Superintendent Advisory Council meeting.
Kelly Ransdale, motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Kelly. A second, please.
Russ Tilford, second.
Thanks, Russ. Ms. Fraker, would you please take a roll call vote?
Danny Adkins,
Danny Atkins votes yes.
Tim Bobrowski,
Tim Bobrowski, yes.
Harry Burchett,
Harry Burchett, and I vote yes.
David Cox,
David Cox, yes.
Jerry Green,
Jerry Green, yes.
Keith Hale,
Keith Hale, yes.
David Raleigh,
As much as I love these virtual meetings, I'm going to vote yes.
Kelly Ransdale,
Kelly Ransdale, I vote yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
This is Kirk Biggerstaff, and I vote yes.
Russ Tilford,
Russ Tilford, yes.
and Sheila Mitchell.
This is Sheila Mitchell, I vote yes.
Okay, Chair Green, that's all of your members. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank each of the members of LSAC. And at this time, I'd like to give Commissioner Brown an opportunity to speak with us. And Commissioner, had more phone calls since the president said he wanted to reopen the country on Easter, April the 12th, asking if we would please open schools back here in Pikeville. And I'm don't know how much of it's childcare related, and don't know how much of it's based on educational need. But if you'd like to share any items with us, and especially relating to that topic, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. I know you're getting a lot of questions, and many of them have no answers right now or are difficult to answer. As you all know, the governor has recommended, and we have every district has complied with these recommendations, and I believe most, if not all, private schools have followed your lead in closing schools until April 20th. The fact that we were able to get that done in Kentucky without, a formal executive order, which is just a testament, as I've said before, to, the nature of the K-12 education family here in Kentucky. So I appreciate that. And I know the governor does, and he said as much. We're going to be closed until April 20th. I think everybody hopes that we're back in session and in-person classes on April 20th. But, just to be, if you, just watch what's going on and the rate of these cases around the country, and then it's further complicated with, people coming back from spring breaks and college kids coming back from spring breaks, and there's a case, that's associated with that. And I mean, it's just, there's something new every day. So, I would be very surprised if we're back in class on April 20th, and the governor has said for us to obviously prepare not to be, even though we hope so, which is why I've asked all of you to prepare 6 weeks of NTI instruction starting March 16th. And I'm just kind of using May 1st. There's nothing special about the date of May 1st other than it was Derby Eve. I guess not Derby Eve anymore. But of course, my birthday is also on May 2nd. It'll always be Derby Day to me. So, but we were using May 1st as a date because that was a 6-week period that we could get in 6 weeks of NTI. And it's actually a 7-week period from March 16th to May 1st. And you could get 6 weeks of NTI in there even if you took your spring break. And so we're just kind of using that as kind of a judgment point. And as you all know, we're having the discussions is if we're still not in school on May 1st or after, or if we don't go back at all, what does NTI instruction look like on May 1st? It's going to be a heavy lift for everybody, as you all know, to get 6 weeks in. Of course, you can get the time in and you can do it, but what does that look like, and how is that affecting kids and teachers? And it's a whole different way of instructing. And so we're already having the conversations, and I need your all's feedback over the next few days as to where do you see us going and what's the best for kids if we have to go past May 1st. And that leads us into a discussion on Senate Bill 177, which was passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor this week, which gives much needed relief and guidance to us from the General Assembly during this time. And it uses the magic number of 1,062. So the General Assembly is saying through Senate Bill 177, we want you school districts to try to get to 1,062 instructional hours by June 12th. And then it gives the commissioner a lot of authority to relieve that if districts cannot maximize instructional time to get to 1062. Some districts will actually be at 1062 or around 1062 around May 1st. Others, it would take them on into the middle of May, if not beyond that, to get to 1062. Because, for example, Jefferson County has not yet started NTI because they're one of the new districts coming on, and because they're so big, they needed at least a week to get that ready. So they're going to start NTI, I think, at the beginning of April. So that would put them behind of getting those 1062 hours on into May. So all of those things are being discussed as to what that looks like. Can we still provide effective instruction by using NTI into a 7th week, 8th week, 9th week for some districts? And I don't know the answer to that, but something for us to continue to talk about. And of course, we're talking about, and subject of the task force that we put together is the superintendents are represented by all the co-op directors, KSBA, KASS, and KASA are all on this task force, and the task force is designed to just kind of give guidance about all these questions that are coming up. Another one being, what does graduation look like for our seniors? The state board is probably going to have to issue some kind of a waiver to give you all some authority and guidance to, graduate kids, even though their last semester is going to look very different than what everybody expected and what colleges and post-secondary, expects. But that's where we are, and there's nothing wrong with that in an emergency situation. So all those things are being discussed. And then I'll to summarize, I'm using 3 words to help guide KDE during this time. You know, we all have mission statements and vision statements, and those are great, and we still abide by those, but I'm drilling down into a little bit more specifics during this time, and the 3 words are educate, feed, and pay. And educate, of course, we have an obligation at the department to support you as you're educating and supporting kids during this time using non-traditional means. And then feed, the next obligation we have as a state is to, we have the infrastructure to feed kids through school districts. And I believe we only have 1 county where we're not covering kids under some type of feeding program through a school district. And that wasn't the case 10 days ago, because we still had districts and areas that were not covered, and folks really stepped up to the plate to get on summer feeding during this time. So that is something that is we have to continue to do. And then during the summer feeding has never been more important. Let's just say things return back to normal in June. The economy is not going to catch up, and we know even on a good day in the national economy, we struggle in Kentucky with our own economy, and so we need summer feeding in the best of years, and we certainly are going to need it this year. But we all know there could be problems with summer feeding because, you know, if the virus continues to spread, and there was a school district yesterday that had a food service worker who has had to be tested, and so a letter had to go out to families, and it was very well done, and we're going to share that with you in case you have similar occurrences. But you know, we may have to look at doing food service differently as things change, and we're having conversations with USDA almost every day about what does that look like. What does it look like if school districts may actually, what about if districts need to bring in community volunteers to help put food sacks together if for some reason food service workers couldn't come in? Is that permitted under the regs? Whereas in a normal time it wouldn't be, because those individuals wouldn't be trained. And obviously still getting feedback from the Department of Public Health. The district that had to send the letter back home about the person that had contracted the virus, they worked very closely with their local health department to, you know, put language in the letter reassuring families there's an extremely low risk that it could have been spread through, you know, a food bag or something like that. So, you know, all these things are changing day by day, and so we're trying to get that information out to you. I still have the 3rd word though. So the first 2, the first is educate, feed, and the 3rd is pay, for lack of a better term. We have an obligation at the state level to keep you whole and send the state funds to you, just like we would have had this been a normal school year. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You'll get your SEEK payments just as normal. And then to reinforce to you, districts have an obligation to also try to keep employees as whole as possible. And that's the intention of, I think, the General Assembly through Senate Bill 177, granting the authority for districts to have emergency days. And then there's even been some language in Congress about local school districts needing to continue to pay people through this as part of the criteria for receiving relief aid for states. I'm not sure if that language made it in the final bill or not, but my point is that I think everybody understands that school districts are a vibrant part of local economies, and that we need to try to take care of our employees the best we can, and acting in good faith to the taxpayer, and for particularly your classified folks, trying to be as creative as possible to get them their contract days by giving them training or other things to do. And I know the co-ops are going to be assisting in getting those ideas out and sharing those ideas across the state as you all are kind of doing innovative things. And then I see the relief valve. If you can't get an employee to the finish line on days or trainings, the granting of the emergency days is something that the General Assembly has allowed you to do. Now, it sounds great and easy for me saying that your employees can be made whole. I know that you have problems with, you know, some classified employees coming in and working, others not, because either they don't want to, because there may be their doctor told them not to, or you don't have something for them to do. And so I realize there are still issues with how we work through all of that. And some employees feeling like their colleagues may be rewarded for not coming in and others. And we know that's an issue, but we're going to help you try to work through that as we get through it. And the most important thing is we keep sharing with things that districts are doing, share those with your co-ops, any innovations that you're having with employees and how you're keeping work going to them or trainings to them. So that's a lot, but that's a pretty good summary. Oh, and then of course we canceled testing. So we don't have a formal approval from USAID, but we have tentative approval. But I didn't want to wait for the formal approval, and you all, that's one less thing that you all need to be worrying about right now. So we no K-Prep in the spring of 2020, and then all the accountability determinations just stay constant until we get to the next year.
We certainly appreciate those comments from you, and thanks for sharing that information. And, you know, in the chat side of this, appreciate the reminder that the superintendent's webcast is Friday from 2 to 4 regarding questions and answers. And you've certainly shared a great deal of information here, and we're thankful for that. I just wanted you to know, I think every superintendent on here, and the vast majority across the Commonwealth, instead of just making preparations to May 1, I think every one of us are making preparations to finish this school year with NTI. And don't get me wrong, we're all hopeful that we'll come back before then, but I don't know that anybody is ordering prom invitations or graduation invitations at this point. I think everyone has those on hold, and I don't want to be negative in any way, but I believe that most all of us are preparing for the worst.
I think that's exactly right. As you know, we have several advisory councils in addition to LSAC, you know, all of the different role groups, and I actually convened the student advisory group yesterday. They're probably our toughest and most thoughtful advisory group, but I tell you, I was just amazed at how they are taking this in stride. And actually several of the members sent an email back and said, I can't come to your call because I have a class at that time, an online class. And I said, well, just tell the teacher that the commissioner needs you on a call. And they were able to come to the call. But that was reassuring to me, because it was like, wow, things are still going on. And of course, they identified some issues, and the AP classes are a heavy lift for them. On NTI, and not having that classroom interaction. And they were talking some about, you know, the social, emotional aspect of it, and that, you know, it's not all rosy, but the fact that they're persevering, and it kind of was very reassuring to me. So we're going to have further discussions, and, you know, on the task force, and with Dr. Sweeney, who's our school guidance counselor consultant, about, you know, what can we do to kind of help seniors and make things as special as possible, even though it may be in a virtual environment.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank everyone else, and want to be mindful and respectful of Commissioner Brown's time. And this kind of gives us a heads up about the webcast for Friday. And I'm sure that he would welcome any questions in advance, that this will be opened up. So if you're seeing several types of similar questions, you can address those in the webcast.
Absolutely. And the webcast Monday, I apologize for it. We kind of got double booked, and we had that task force meeting, so we had to cut it off at an hour, but we're allowing 2 hours for the webcast, or we'll go longer than that if necessary. And we also understand that superintendents may have to jump on and jump off, but we want to try to get through all the questions as best we can tomorrow.
Commissioner, this is Dave Cox. I want to jump in real quickly here. I wanted to echo what Jerry said a few minutes ago. We certainly appreciate, at least in our part of the state, the transparency that you have, and the opportunity to be able to get a hold of you when we need to. And I would also like to thank David Cook and Stephen Kissinger. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting on this NTI. We've been in this for 5 years now, or ever how long it's been, since day one, and we've had a ton of questions. So they've been a tremendous help. as well. And I would like to thank them. And if you see them today, please tell them that their name was mentioned and they're very much appreciated. Please.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just can you clarify information that we're receiving about unemployment for substitutes in the districts and where that's going to go? It doesn't look like it's going to be a huge cost, but it could be a cost to districts. And I was kind of concerned about how that would go.
I don't have a specific answer on that. I know that those discussions have taken place with the governor's office, and I know that they were aware of that consideration. So we'll get an answer, a specific answer for you on that, and we'll repeat it on tomorrow's call, or reveal the answer on tomorrow's call. Jennifer, if you could go ahead and let Robin know that we need to take care of that one.
Sure will.
Thank you. And just one last thing, I'll jump back in, not to be leaving on a negative note, but I do appreciate everything you guys are doing, Kevin, because I know this is tough work, and you guys, all of you, have done a great job, even the ladies today that's put this thing together. So thank you all.
Well, it's easy to do it up here when you all are doing it down there. So I want to thank you all. When I can tell the governor that, yes, Governor, if you recommend that districts will be closed, we have 172 districts that will close. I don't know that a conversation like that could occur in many other states, to be honest with you.
Well, and also, if you don't mind, to please share with him, during our last webinar with him, I believe he just basically same as requested that we continue serving meals during spring break. You know, we shared that with our food service personnel. There wasn't a question. If that's what needs to be done, that's what we'll do. And none of us take that kind of attitude lightly.
Yep.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green? Hey, this is Harry Burchett. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd just like to chime in there and echo your all sentiments too with Commissioner Brown and his staff. You guys know we started with this on March the 6th and really March the 7th. Commissioner Brown reached out to me by phone, and he convened his staff to be able to help us starting that day. I think they had a special staff meeting by phone or virtually or somehow on maybe in person on Sunday, the 8th, and so they were accessible from day one. And I'll just say that I've not seen better leadership out of the department or out of the governor's office than what I've seen through this whole process. So it's been reassuring to school districts and communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, what happened, that was a Saturday, and I was out on the farm and didn't have my phone with me because couldn't get much reception anyway. And I came in around 5 o'clock and all hell had broken loose. So that's how that happened. And you, Burchett, you've really shown the way here as an example of how a district handles situations like this. So I want to thank you for your leadership and how you've modeled cooperation with public health and other leaders in your communities being replicated across the state.
Well, certainly those community partnerships was the key in being able to be ahead of this thing. We had in place already great community partnerships that were meeting regularly, and so we were able to share the information needed to make informed and make the right decisions. So thank you again.
Okay, if no other, excuse me, if no other comments, then just want to thank everyone and appreciate you. And again, on Commissioner Brown's behalf, if we can get those questions typed in advance to the superintendent's webcast, I'm sure he would appreciate seeing those in advance so they have their responses ready and we can move through the webcast as quickly as possible. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You too.
Thank you.